We thought that would be a good topic for people to learn about if they've not already done expos or showcasing games to the public and been through that process. So we've got a couple of different backgrounds here. People have come from a dev background, people have come from an events background, so I think there's a good kind of mix here. So do you guys want to just take it in turns to say who you are and what your kind of background is and what you do? That's good. You want to start with?
Yeah, absolutely. My name's Andrew Dice. I'm from a company called We Throw Switches, which was started up at the sort of middle of last year. We predominantly do games events things, so that can be everything from, we do our own indie games night called Games Are For Everyone, which happens at a club in Edinburgh every so often. Haven't done one for a while, but we should get on that. Yeah. We've done work for curated collections for Glasgow Film Festival, and we just finished doing the indie stuff for the Play Expo Glasgow event at the Great Arena last weekend.
Very much like what Andrew said, I'm the other half of We Throw Switches. My name's Craig, and you've done it. You've done it. Yeah, thanks, mate.
I'm Tony. I have a one-man indie developer called Ant Workshop. I have a game called Binaries, which I've talked about a lot, and I've shown that at Games Are For Everyone in Edinburgh. I've shown it at Dare Protoplayer. I've shown it at EGX Resd in London and Insomnia in Edinburgh, and I think somewhere else, but I can't remember where else. I've just shown it at a bunch of places.
Cool, I'm Stephen. I'm 1/5 of Insert Imagination and 1/50th of Tag Games in Dundee. My main kind of forte is I'm working on an indie puzzle game called Totem, which I've showcased at Dare. I'm totally gone blank as to what you just
Games
said.
Are For Everyone.
Games Are For Everyone. Games Are For Everyone and a bunch of other events dotted around Dundee and the country, and the Norwich Gaming Festival and GDC this year. So yeah.
Cool. So that's come from quite different backgrounds in terms of what you're like, what you're doing and what you're kind of trying to achieve for it. So I think a good thing to talk about is like what the kind of objective of doing these events are. So like start off from a dev point of view, like what is it? Have you been shown off pre-release to try and get user feedback first and foremost? So what's kind of been that process like? Have you done a couple of shows?
So it's been mostly exhibiting the game for kind of feedback and playtesting. That's what the majority of events that myself or the rest of the team have been to. So a lot of it has just been putting the game in players' hands, seeing how they play it, standing over their shoulder watching them play it, which is great fun.
Shouting, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, or stopping yourself from shouting at them and watching 5-year-old kids beat it faster than you can, which is always good fun. But there's been the odd event like GDC where it was about showcasing the company more so than actually the game. So being able to broadcast like this is what we can do as a company, give us money.
Yeah. And Tony, you've done quite well.
So with Binaries, I did. So the first time it got a public showing was at Games Are For Everyone. So that was at that point the game literally had, I think it had 10 levels in it because I'd made a bunch of extra levels for that event, so that it was kind of there. Sort of the core gameplay stuff was there in it, and the very sort of rough idea of what it looks like and that kind of thing. And then the next time it got a showing at anything was at Dare. So when it was at that Games For Everyone, like kind of people really got into it. You really got a feel for what different people find difficult in things and what people find easier, and like kind of where people are getting into it, and just whether the idea is any good or not. By the time I showed it at Dare after that, I'd actually had quite a big change in the sort of structure of the game. So rather than having just one level after another level, you had this kind of open map. So once you finish the level, you unlock the levels around it, and then you can kind of choose your route a little bit. And that was brand new to the game at that point. So Dare was kind of a thing of showing that off and seeing whether that idea actually worked, and whether people got into that, and whether people just understood this idea of moving around the map. And that worked out quite well, because I think Dare's quite a good event for that kind of thing, because it's a lot of really young kids that aren't going to buy your stuff but are really enthusiastic about playing stuff. But then, yeah, you know, Rezzed and Insomnia were both post-release, so at that point it was like, I don't care what you say about this game. This game is finished, it's there, just play it, enjoy it. Please play it and enjoy it. And that was about that for that.
So did your approach to then, if you've shown the game multiple times, is your approach each time been different in terms of like how you're gathering feedback, like what you've learned from the first showing applying to the second one, like how you get people engaged or how you talk about your game? Is that something that you've been refining with each show, perhaps?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Like I think events like are really good for that kind of thing of like. So people talk about like when you're kind of trying to market your game and kind of coming up with that like kind of how to like the elevator pitch, like the sort of one-line pitch of like how do you describe your game in that single sentence kind of thing. Events are absolutely fantastic for that because it's like every 2 minutes you get a new opportunity to kind of go, okay, the last person that came past, I said this, and they just walked straight on past and didn't care. So like this person, I'm going to go for something, and it's like it's really dynamic for that kind of thing. Of the only thing that I found really weird about it was you kind of forget which bits you've said to different people. Like so at Rezzed, especially because Rezzed is 3 days and it was insanely busy, and you kind of just there and you start babbling away at people and you can't remember which bits of the pitch you've already given to which people, and it all went a bit wrong.
But you learned a lot from it. It's amazing. And you guys, like, because your events that you've done, you've curated a set of games. Some of them have been pre-release, I guess, and some of them post that are games that are already out. Like I think you had Downwell and stuff like that. Games of Purple Limits.
Yeah.
So is that like when you're looking at those games, like how are you finding those games in the first place? Are you contacting developers or are they coming to you? Like
A mix, I'd say.
Yeah, it's a bit of both actually.
I'd say that we're always kind of browsing and looking around and trying to make connections with people that may or may not be interested in us showing their game, and I think that's probably one of the things that we spend, when it comes to something like Games of Everyone, something we do spend a fair amount of time doing is trying to reach out to developers and ask if they're okay with us showing their game, and or and asking if it's something that they want to have shown at a particular point in their development cycles and stuff like that, because a big part of the Games of Everyone stuff was obviously the ethos was bringing out games from behind closed doors and putting them into social spaces, and it tended to be that something really accessible might not necessarily be something that people want to be shown off, like
Well,
it's
one of those things where people, a lot of time we approach people about builds of games, and more often than not, and I should probably say neither Craig nor I come from a dev background, so we're like entirely removed from most of the process of like the creative process of going into it. We have so many people going, oh no, I'd be really. The game's not finished yet, it's still got bugs, it still crashes, I'm not really sure if I want to show it off and things like that. And that's really interesting for us because a lot of the events we do, if a game crashes or if it bugs out or something like that, it's not really for the developer sees that as potentially somebody showing the game off as like maybe a failure or something like that, or oh no, this has gone horribly. But for the majority of people playing it, it's not really that much of a thing. They just load it back up again and then they get to play the game again. Yeah. So it's so some people maybe bounce off the idea of showing the game because, okay, we want to make sure, we want to get the best, absolute best first impression. And I can totally understand that.
Yeah, so accessibility.
But for a lot of people who are at our events, especially the ones who are pissed, just want to sit there and not just stand there and have a drink and sort of see something new. In terms of how we find things, it's all sorts of stuff. Like we keep an eye on a lot of projects that happen on in the Scottish games sort of community scene, especially. Sometimes we'll email people. Sometimes people will tip us off about something that's really interesting, and we'll sort of find it behind closed doors. But really, we're constantly on the lookout for things that are new and interesting. And even if it won't suit a particular event we've got coming next week, it might suit an event we've got coming 2 months down the line, and we'll know to make that connection and then reach out to devs after that.
And a lot of the choices that we make, I'd say, are often pertinent to the type of venue that we're operating in as well. So, for example, the Games of Everyone events that we've done thus far, all 3 of them up to this point have been in the Mash House, and it's been really interesting because it's three stories tiered, and it gives you, and they're basically big open rooms with like wooden floors, and it's quite a rustic kind of vibe, and it makes for really interesting spaces to play with. So for Games of Everyone 3, we had sort of something that we called the Quiet Arcade. And we picked out games like Clive's Observatorium, for example, Capsule 3, and it just made for a really kind of subtle atmosphere where we could kind of invite people in and just have a bit of fun with the games that were there. We had Vida's Burr as well, which was like, it's a very conversational, one person plays it, you put on headphones, and you know, you're kind of encapsulated in a space, and it's kind of like a one-to-one experience. So finding games that are maybe relevant to particular spaces or having themes, you know, it helps that you have a venue that allows you to access, you know, themes like that, you know. So that's part of the kind of process that we'll go through when we're doing these sorts of events.
So have you found that some games work better in different spaces in general? Like, have you taken, because I know you've taken some of the same games to different places, like Suffolk Games Are For Everyone, but also at Play Expo and Braehead, but they're like very different environments and very different kind of crowd, I guess, right? So is that impacted in what you've chosen for those things, or how you show them?
Fragmental goes closest to the bar, usually. not just because the boys that make the game tend to have a beer themselves, but yeah, it seems to be conducive to like a really loud and vibrant atmosphere. So we'll put games around it which might not be necessarily affected negatively by like noise interference, for example, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like really sort of, if it's a big bar environment, you want something really loud, you want something bright and colourful. For other events we've done, so Play Expo was something we did in Glasgow last weekend. We were setting up that for about 4 hours, and about 3 hours of it was actually just working out which games should go next to each other to make sure that, for example, you wouldn't want to have a really rowdy local multiplayer game with 4 people sort of swearing at each other and like throwing controllers around right next to something that's a really delicate experience that might have headphones on, because although people will be playing the game, you'll still be aware of things on either side of you and stuff like that. So a lot of what we do is trying to just, rather than just filling a space with things, trying to work out which things will work together and which things will be particularly good in a venue, but also a particular part of the venue as well.
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So in terms of like just going back to showing the game off pre and post release, like, so is your game still in pre?
Yeah, it's still in
yes. And Binaries has been, you've shown it in advance and you've shown it post launch, and as that must be quite a different experience then from trying to get user feedback to trying to get awareness of a product. Has that changed the way you show the game or how you present that game, or?
No, not so much, to be honest. I mean, even when it was pre-release, it's like you're still trying to get people to, trying to kind of get an action out of people. So it's like I always approach the events with like an idea of like, well, what do I want out of a person that's playing it at this point? Like, and is it just feedback, or do I want them to? So like when I was showing it there, even at that point, it was like, well, I still want people to sign up for like a mailing list or something, because if they just come and have a look at a thing and then wander off, and especially because my game, I changed the name of it halfway through development, so it's like if they played it once, then they might not catch up with it again. So yeah, I always kind of had that idea of like going into a thing, wanting people to do something and engage with it, and so you always just kind of push on that angle really, and just, I mean, I find it's just getting people in, like you'd think at like an event, like everyone's there to go and play loads of games and they're walking around wanting to play loads of games, but what you actually see is a lot of the time people are actually quite nervous about going up and playing a game, because there's essentially a massive crowd of other people there. And especially with something like, so I found it quite a bit with Binaries, people would say like, oh, I'm not sure I want to play it because I'm not sure I'll be good at it, so, and I don't want to look rubbish in front of all these kids that are stuck behind me, booing me and that kind of thing. So it's like, you'd almost have to like work quite hard to coax people up. And you'd see like, so even at like big shows like EGX, where people have paid good money to turn up to this thing, they'll walk down the aisles of the show just kind of like looking at everything, kind of clocking it all, and then you actually have to kind of go up to them and go, hey, come on, this is what this is, get involved, have a play, have a sit down, and once you get people kind of sat and playing it, then they're enjoying it. But
it's interesting, because we No Code exhibited a game with you guys at Braehead as well, and we found a similar thing, that people would kind of walk past and you'd have to coax them into playing. But then on the second day, we kind of decided to take a step back and leave the stand kind of unmanned, and found that people would kind of look around and then go for a play. And it was that kind of like checking whether someone's going to be watching you do it, or whether you're going to make a fool of yourself.
Your high score was also on the wall behind.
That's true.
So they'd see John and they'd be like, right, is John here? No, great, I'll have a go.
Then lie.
But yeah, when I showed at Insomnia, I couldn't leave the stand because the machine that they'd lent me had reset about once every hour. Sometimes multiple times. So when you're on about like people don't mind games that crash, it's like I was mortified that whole week. Literally, like people would be playing and they get to an end of a level and all of a sudden everything would go blank, and then the kid would just like turn around and look at me like, the monitor's turned on. Did I do that? She's just like, no, it just does this, but only on this machine. If you go and buy it, it doesn't do it on every machine. Honest.
What kind of PC have you got? I'll be fine.
Yeah.
Listen, so in terms of that, like technical problems are a big deal, especially when there's, like when you're setting up 8 or 10 different machines and that kind of stuff. I mean, in terms of preparing for that, like having some contingency plan, would you be bringing extra kit with you, or a second PC just in case? I know like Fragmental guys had a lot of problems at Insomnia, which I think was kit they were given. Yeah. And the PC, like I don't know if it was like the graphics card was just dying every 20 minutes.
It was swiftly replaced, I think, wasn't it? Like
I mean that's the good thing about Insomnia is that because they provide the kit for you if you want them to. Literally, you tell them that you're having a problem, and because they're basically like a LAN party, they've just got so many boxes of these computers, and by the time I'd walked up and complained and walked back down to where the indie thing was, there was already a dude there unpacking and like basically just inserting a new computer into the space.
Right.
So they're pretty good at that.
So that's going to vary depending on the place you're at, I guess, that kind of response. Yeah,
and like a lot of places. I mean, it's a weird one as to whether places even provide hardware or not.
Yeah. So I think what I'm kind of trying to get at is how, if people are doing this for the first time, to make sure they're actually thinking about what could happen, what could go wrong, what they need to bring. It's even something like if they do replace the PCs, making sure you've got a build on a USB stick. It's not on the machine; it's on something else. So is there any kind of other stuff like that you would be recommending people to do if they're showing a game for the first time, or have been shown games but maybe not been successful? Or
absolutely, like we get asked at so many events. We get asked at so many events like, do you have a XXX? And it could be anything. So like, and most of the time we do have it, but it's definitely not something to rely on, because a lot of the time, like depending on the events we do, all of our stuff might be strung out across the entire venue depending on the profile of the event. Like my recommendation is, if it's something you need, like bring 2 of it if you can. Like obviously that doesn't really go for monitors or PCs necessarily, but if you can do that, bring a double of absolutely everything, because always something will, like chances are, like, or you forget a cable or something like that. So like try and think of every scenario you need. Like we were like sometimes we were asked people like to swap between like a mouse and like a keyboard maybe, or a mouse and a sort of an Xbox controller. And we end up providing the Xbox controllers, which is fine. Like if we have it, we'll absolutely do that. But yeah, just think of every eventuality.
Yeah, and a massive part of it, like the entire process from start to finish, is absolutely like communication. I think that like it can't be overstated. And we were in quite a unique position when it came to helping at Replay with the likes of Play Expo, because we effectively mediated a lot of the chats between developers and the actual event organisers themselves, and we were kind of in the middle helping to make connections, because this is their first time up on Scottish turf. They usually they do Blackpool, do Manchester, but this is their first time up in Scotland, in Glasgow, and that was effectively part of what we were tasked with, was helping them to make connections and network with people up in Scotland. And it was hard for us at times, because we would get asked questions, like really, really important, pertinent questions from developers, such as like, what output do the monitors have? If I'm hiring a monitor, does it do VGA? Does it do HDMI? Does it whatever? And do they have audio? Will I need to bring headphones? And we'd have to then go back to the organisers and say, what are your monitors? Well, we've got this kind. How many do you have? Blah, blah, blah. And it can be difficult. So I think having like a checklist, effectively, and maybe this is something that we can actually help to draft up after something like this and put out there. Because I think it'd be really good information for everybody to share, that when you're consulting, when you're making an initiative to talk to people that are running an event, that you have a list of questions that you might easily forget, because there's always something you forget. In the same way Andrew's saying, do you have my such and such has just melted, oh my god, it goes on and on, it always happens, so communication right the way throughout the process, knowing what kind of kit you're expecting to walk into and see on the day,
Yeah.
You know,
And,
it's really
and
important.
maybe just don't assume anything. Like even the smallest, like as event organizers, if someone sent us an email saying, like even if it's as long as your arm email with like every single little bit, we'd rather that and go through that and say yep than people assume things, turn up at the event, and then maybe don't have things. So it's as people, if someone's organising an event, they should be happy to answer those questions for you and give those answers in terms of like the individual things, equipment.
And often they do, and also don't think of these things themselves as well.
Oh yeah, totally. Like there's always going to be things that you forget, but
Yeah.
you want to try and minimise that as much as possible, build in as much redundancy for things like that, like mouse mats. People always forget mouse mats, and like a lot of the time it's not an issue, but sometimes you'll get a surface and it's like, sorry, okay, I have mouse mats.
The infrared mouse does not work on this
Yeah.
surface. Like, I'm done. Yeah.
Or even that there's space for a mouse mat.
Yeah,
Because you could be
totally.
on a standee that doesn't have that yet.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's interesting. So, I guess the onus though is on the developer to ask those questions rather than expect to turn up and be handed everything, or
I think the part of the event organising process should be that you provide as much information as you can. Like, so for example, we made a kind of, when it came to replay, we worked with all the information that we had at the time, and we sent information packs out to developers that we felt that we'd had conversations with initially and that were interested. So, well, we've got an info pack. But by the time we actually got to running the event, if we'd gone back and redone that info pack, we would have probably had like a couple more pages of just solid information that we could have provided, but we didn't necessarily have at the time.
Yep.
And again, it's quite a unique situation that we found ourselves in, but I think that there's a bit of back and forth. It's certainly important that you come to event organisers with questions of your own to look after yourself, to make sure that you're protecting what you want to put out, in front of X amount of people.
Yeah.
But they also have an obligation to inform you as much as they possibly can.
I mean, I think the thing is, if you have any doubts or any questions at all, just get in touch with the people who are looking after you, and they should be able to sort you out, or at least sort of provide information to that effect.
Yeah.
So people know where they stand.
so don't assume, don't guess, just
Don't be shy.
Don't be shy of sort of
Don't be shy
contacting
at
people and
all.
say, look, what do I have? Do I have power? Like, how many sockets will I have access to? Is it going to be 2 or is it going to be 4? Like, what's the graphics card output on the machine if you're providing me with a machine? Just little things like that. And if people should not kick up a fuss about telling you that information, because it's just like it's them doing their
Yeah,
jobs.
and the worst case is on the day something is wrong, and then you're not happy, and you've paid money for a space. And,
Yeah.
it's the communication thing, always.
I feel like we're going to get hundreds of emails now from people when we do our next exhibiting event, but that's absolutely fine.
Our cookies involved.
But just to kind of reinforce that, the first time I did Dare to Be Digital, we had a game on Vita, and PlayStation First were really nice to give us these like fancy display stands for these things. But when we actually ran the game on it crashed immediately because they couldn't handle the way we were building our audio stuff. So we had 2 pods with devices that didn't play audio all weekend, which was like a really big deal because that was something we spent a lot of time on. But we had no idea until we got these stands like 24 hours before the show started.
right.
So
Is that kind of toss-up, like,
Yeah.
because so some shows provide you with like machines, and I kind of prefer that because I prefer not to have to lug my own stuff around. But then Dare, you bring your own stuff,
Yeah.
so it's like at least on Dare, because I'm taking my own kit. It's like I know that the game runs on this. I know it's fine. I know it's all there. If I get this and get it to the event, I'm golden. Whereas it's like, even at like a really well-run event like Res, where it's like they send you this beforehand, they're really clear about everything that you're getting, and okay, you get these things, you don't get these things. You'll need to bring your own Xbox controllers if you want controllers, all of that kind of stuff. You still, there's this bit of you where you're like, if I turn up with my 2 USB sticks, because I always got a backup, and I've got my build, and I stick my build on that machine, and it doesn't run, what on earth am I going to do at that point? Like, I'm kind of screwed. Whereas it's, so the other one I would say is insurance. Nobody ever thinks about insurance, but if someone's sat in front of the computer playing your game and the monitor explodes in their face for whatever reason, who has to pay for that? Essentially, who's to blame? Because some events you'll be covered under the event. They'll explicitly tell you you're covered under their public liability insurance, and some events will require you to take out your own public liability insurance.
Okay. So that's worthwhile asking
Yeah,
to get clarification on before doing anything. Yeah.
because I mean it's 1,000,000 to 1 thing to happen, but
It's bound to happen.
yeah, I mean it's bound to happen
If
eventually.
you exhibit on a CRT, then it's probably.
That's the thing. I mean, because some people can be rough with stuff. Some people can be breaking stuff. There's a liability there where if your equipment is damaged by someone playing it, what happens there? Like, is someone going to pay for that, or is that just on you?
On equipment as well, I'd say, and this is a really minor thing, but just while on the subject of equipment, if you're taking a build to an expo or showing it off, and it's on your personal laptop, or it's on you're taking your own stuff, absolutely, if it's keyboard and mouse, buy a cheap keyboard and mouse from Amazon or something like that, because occasionally we have people who use their own laptops for shows, and we run replay as well, and it's their own personal laptop, and the amount of people who are hammering buttons over the course of that weekend on that laptop over and over, and it's the same 8 buttons, and I was looking at that going, the life cycle on those 8 buttons has just been massively reduced. So buy a cheap USB keyboard, keyboard and mouse, and use that instead. Because then you can always chuck that away for 50.
At the end of the weekend, you can burn it.
Yeah, absolutely. And
so
sanitizing wipes and stuff.
Alcohol hand gel. That's the other thing to not forget.
Yeah.
And the alcohol hand gel isn't for the people that play. So my wife was like, "Gee, so are you going to give that to people before they play stuff?" She's like, "No, this is literally for me, so that I'll hand the controller to someone, take it off them, then I'll clean my hands, and then that'll be fine."
Go into a bath.
Yeah. Just stand there in my bubble and my breathing mask.
Well, it's funny because at E3, when Sony were showing off the PSVR, they had PlayStation branded baby wipes.
Yeah.
For everyone, so because people are sweating in environments and they've got these kind of sponge.
Yeah, people really have it. I've heard other people on podcasts people are really having to start to think now. Because VR is a fantastic. If you ever go to an event and take a VR thing, if you're ever worried about how do I attract people to my thing at an event, take a VR game, because literally I've never been to anything where there hasn't been a massive queue. No matter what, it will always attract the crowd, because most people haven't played it.
You're right.
But then you have this thing of there's a lot of sweaty people putting on these sweaty things and sweaty headphones.
Rubbing their eyes.
Bit minion.
Yeah. So, what I was wanting to talk about next was kind of the potential costs of this for developers to actually show a game off. Some things you'll be able to get involved in for free, or people will just be asking you to come along, or you just submit a build and someone else is kind of doing that work. But if for example, you're going to EGX or GDC, the potential costs there can vary massively. The cost for exhibiting, the cost for travel, and all the other bits in between. So you showed the game at GDC.
Yeah.
So that must have been a pretty.
So GDC itself, because we kind of applied to Scottish Development Enterprise, it didn't cost us anything to actually go to the show and exhibit.
Yeah.
So that was quite nice. What it cost us was our flights and accommodation. So that was a huge thing for us, because that allowed us to actually get there. So being aware of kind of all these initiatives that you can apply to. Things like Dundee City Council will pay 50% of your travel and accommodation.
Wow.
Yeah, for your first time going to any kind of international event to promote your stuff. So that's kind of a big deal, and that's how we managed to afford that. But the costs for that all came down to things like printing leaflets, printing business cards and stuff like that, and you'll find that with buttons and badges.
So
and stuff
did you
like
print the leaflets out here and then
printed them out here
across
and
with you?
took them over, So that felt a lot easier for us.
Yeah.
Meant we could actually check them and stuff like that really quickly. I got a friend to do it at Abertay, so they were really cheap. So that was kind of our biggest cost event. After that was kind of Dare to Be Digital, the first time we did Dare to Be Digital, and we had a huge cost because we had the posters. Some teams paid £200 for custom balloons, and it was just you're really surprised the stuff that costs quite a lot, but doesn't really mean much. You're handing all these balloons to kids, that's £2 of balloon now.
You say that every time.
Yeah.
£2.
You better buy the game.
You're in the wrong business.
Yeah,
Balloon making
It's the little things that really mount up really quick. It's okay, I'm going to spend 50 quid on leaflets, 50 quid on business cards, 50 quid on badges. That's 150 quid before you even get there.
Yeah.
Before accommodation and stuff like that. Yeah. So it can very much vary. And then you've got events where, say, developer, it's £250 just to exhibit. That's what I'm getting there and stuff like that. And you don't know what the footfall is going to be like and stuff like that.
Sure. So I guess that, EGX, I don't know if you can talk about actual prices for exhibiting stuff.
Probably, they're never going to listen.
EGX.
So EGX for a single stand in the indie thing at Res was 1,200 quid, including VAT.
Just 3 days.
For 3 days. But the thing I approached that with the knowledge of like, look, it's an event where people go to it year on year. I've been to it as a punter. I know how many people are turning up. I know it's the quality of people that you get in there. I know because it's in London, all the press go there as well, and it's a calculated kind of cost versus like Dare, where it's essentially it's a bunch of kids who have been dragged around the shops shopping for school shoes or whatever, and then it's like, right, go on then, we'll go in and we'll play the games, and you'll have an hour playing the games, and then we're going back and we're buying the rest of your school uniforms. So the kids are tearing around, wolfing down mouthfuls of your free sweets. And just zooming around, the parents are essentially using you as free childcare because, like, speaking of insurance, that was the scariest thing at Dare. Like, someone just left their kid at the stand and wandered off, and then the kid stopped playing, and then was like, "Where's me mum?" Don't know, mate.
I did have a similar.
Buy the game and I'll tell you.
It's free to play. But Res, and then it's right in the middle of London, so you're kind of looking at obviously travel down to London. I got some friends to help me out as well, so I was paying for their travel and accommodation, and then spent 200 quid on 1,000 badges, which all went over the course.
I think I took a lot of them.
Resold the money.
Yeah.
I mean, so that's the thing. Like, you don't know how many things you're going to need for these kind of things. But yeah, so I've kind of took a calculated gamble of like about 1,000 should do it, and ran out about 2 hours before the end on the Saturday, so that was fine. But yeah, it's just I view the cost very much in terms of like what do I think I might get out of this, and what's the benefit of getting out of this? And so there's a really good one in that you can do it on the cheap. But I would never spend that like sort of proper money on on kind of doing a thing for Dare.
I wasn't doing it.
Yeah, because I've done things like Norwich Gaming Festival, which is very, very family oriented. Did you have you been there?
I did the year before, yeah.
Right, yeah, and it was cool, but it was very, very family oriented, and people were just looking for free stuff. You know, they wanted badges and T-shirts and anything that was remotely like interesting, something they couldn't get from a shop was actually like a really big draw. So we had people that were like friends of ours were doing Maximum Car, and they had like fold out cars that you could build. So it was just like a printout that you could then origami into a little vehicle, and they were just flying off the shelves. People were coming up and playing the game because they were getting this little car to play with. And you could look at it in a cynical way, but it's kind of a nice thing to do for people as well. And you know, it's just factoring that in. Like, say, how much do you need, or you know, if you can work out what the footfall is going to be and what you're
trying to get out of it, right?
Yeah.
Again, it's like if it's that sort of cost, but you're wanting all that playtesting, then if that playtesting's worth that to you, then
is that something you feature into like your development cycle? Like, these are events these are landmarks I'd like to feature my game at these places, and I'll buy these items that I'll take to these events. So I'll buy an X amount that I think will cover me across these 3 events.
Yeah, I guess so. I kind of looked at it into like Resd. I chose to do Resd because it was basically Binaries was due to come out on a Monday, and Resd was the end of that week. So I thought, right, I'll do Resd because this is like a lot of people are taking unfinished games, so to be able to stand there and go, this is a thing that you can buy right now, and also it's on 10% launch discount right now. It seems quite a good thing to do, but I've also heard people say if you're doing Kickstarter stuff, of like having an event, timing your Kickstarter so that there's an event at the start of your Kickstarter.
right.
So that you can basically say to people, so it's like you're basically saying to people right there and then, look, this is on Kickstarter, and then have an event. If you can time it so there's one at the start and one at the end.
I think going back to, I think Ruffian Games when Fragmental first hit Greenlight. I think that hit Greenlight the very night of Games Are For Everyone 3, and they had business cards with like the Greenlight thing on it. And like a fair few people sort of stumbled off into the night and then voted for that in Greenlight. So yeah, makes sense.
I did the same thing with GDC because literally sitting on the plane about to take off from Edinburgh was when I set the Totem Beta live. So it was literally doing the exact same thing. It's like Totem Beta's live now, business card, business card, business card. So yeah, it really helped get a lot of attention into like the mailing list and stuff like that.
Which conversely, I handed out cards at Dare with the URL on them, and so handed out 50, 60 odd cards, something like that. And through Google Analytics, obviously, you can tell where people are coming to your website from. Not a single one from Dundee. Dare, my opinion of Dare is very much that it's for player testing. It's not for selling stuff.
Yeah, totally. Just for getting people to use it, see how they play. Yeah. In terms of that, have you guys got I've seen some people do almost like a checklist of things that they want to get from people. So when someone starts playing, they're kind of taking notes literally on sheets of paper, or I've seen people hand out bits of paper afterwards for like feedback forms and stuff. Have you ever done anything like that, or is that something we consider doing?
I've kind of just, the more and more I've done it, the more I try to take a step back and not watch people struggle, but almost like watch them figure it out. Because I'm finding that more useful, like watching players figure out controls, figure out how the game works, without me standing over their shoulder, or them getting intimidated, or them immediately asking for help. So for that, for me, is quite a big deal. So if people can figure it out on their own, then I'm not going to worry about launch, because I can't be there for every player. So I think a lot of devs, they will hover over people's shoulders and help them, which is fine, but in the real world, when the game gets released, that's not going to be helpful, because then their playtesting is based on people being there helping them. When a player is actually buying it, halfway across the world, they've got no idea what's going on. So for me personally, I try to take a step back. Don't really have a checklist going in to say, what did you think of this or anything like that, but if I can get some sort of positive or negative feedback, then that's really helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of the same. Take a step back, but I always had analytics running on it, so it's like which levels. Like at the end of the night, you can look at it and go, okay, these are the levels that people like that cause the most harm. Basically.
So have you found that you've done quite a lot of custom work for shows and inside the build itself, like adding analytics or creating a custom build that only shows
because
certain
you put
levels?
that analytics stuff in. Anyway, so actually, I've kind of done that now that I'm not showing binaries or anything. I had this thing where I used to basically sit, and if it wasn't being used, like I'd kind of reset it, and then I'd sit and play it or something like that, and then I kind of thought that's rubbish. So I do have a custom build of it now where if it's inactive for 60 seconds, it'll reset the game, but then also play the trailer on a loop with like a press start to play it, and when they press start, it starts them back at the first level again. Yeah. But yeah, I'm not. That might. I don't know. That might end up at Resonate. I guess.
I can't recommend that highly enough. Actually, like if you have the time to do like an event build of your game, which has a couple of things on it, which like as you mentioned, if nothing's happening, it goes back to some sort of rolling demo or sort of something interesting going on, or resets it or something. That's amazing. If you can do a build where just before you enter the game, it shows you the controls. That's incredible, because then you can walk away and people it'll reset. People nudge it awake and it will tell you what to do before you play. And then if you once they've finished playing, like if you put like a goodbye screen with your social media stuff and your website, it's really, really powerful. Like we did an event at the Drygate with for like one of their empties in February, and there was a developer who couldn't be with us, but we were showing their game called Valiant Interactive, and they did a really, really good event build for us. One, which you couldn't quit out of, because that is the worst thing. Like, if you've got a thing in the control, if you've got start options and quit, somebody's going to nudge it to quit. If you remove quit from that build and they don't get a chance to alt F4 it, it's great. Like, they can't get out of it. Showed them the controls before they started, so no one had to be there to tell them what to do. And at the end, had all their social media stuff. And the amount of people who were tweeting out Valiant Interactive after a few beers, just played your game. It was amazing. Like, and they were in Edinburgh, like replying. It was so good, and it was just
The better the better you can kind of inform people from, like, because obviously the first impression they get is the visual, and if they see something is moving, then they're going to be interested in looking at it. They're going to go over. And even if you don't embed your controls within the interface of the game while it's loading or whatever, if you just have like a printout, roughly again, you do a really good job.
I always just have them on an A4 sheet next to the thing.
So that people, just the more you can inform them, perhaps like if you're not wanting to kind of impose yourself on people and be present and allow people to, because it can kind of be intimidating, I suppose, to some folks. And you want to kind of disarm them and allow them to relax around the game. So the more you can inform them of those bits and pieces without you having to step in, the better.
But it even opens up the game to be displayed if you want it to be displayed at events that you might not necessarily can make it at. So a lot of the collections we do, there's games that we want to show that we might not necessarily have the devs there for. So we always reach out to folk and say, look, would you be interested in having your game on show? If so, yes. If they've got an event build, it means we can just walk away. And like everything is there, and they'll get all the benefits of being there without necessarily having to be there themselves. And that's actually the point. So again, a lot of the stuff we show is whether there's being there. If you're happy with your game being shown in public, if you can put a line in your press pack on your website that says that, that is absolutely incredible. Because the amount of our work where we're going towards devs and saying, look, we'd love to show this at an event. There's a game called Regular Human Basketball by an Australian dev called Powerhoof. And it's amazing and it's free, but we always go away and ask them each time if we can use it. If you counter that with a game called Panoramical, which was released last year, they have, you can buy a personal edition for $10. You can buy a professional edition for $100, where they have said that you have the license to use this explicitly at events and do what you want with it. We bought the $100 version, and we have never been happier because it means we don't have any issues with that game being shown. And obviously, we advertise it as being panoramical. We say, like, check out these guys, so they get all the benefits in terms of like social media and things like that. But because they've explicitly said this is an event build, we're like, great, awesome. We will absolutely pay 10 times as much, have no regrets about it, and show this game wherever we can. It's a really good way of doing it, or thinking about it.
So one of the other things I was just thinking of there was about actual, when someone's sitting down to play an event, the kind of session length that they're going to have, and whether you want control over that or whether they want to see how far people can go. I've seen at a few events where people might get slightly disinterested in where they go through a game and they kind of just walk away and leave it in a state that you don't want them to leave it in. So personally, I feel like it's a good idea to kind of limit how much you show so that they kind of always end on a good note. But the kind of question is like, how long is too long, and how many people do you want to get through it? Is there some kind of crazy formula for that, or any opinion on how long you really want someone to be sat down? I mean, I guess like you guys at Glasgow VR, at Play Expo, just to put you on
setup hours,
but you guys had like a queue for the entire weekend, so I guess the session length had a massive impact on what you could do.
Day 2 we had to change the session time. We did try and give everyone a really good experience by giving them like 15 minutes, but then by 6 minutes past 10 in the morning we were fully booked, so we did have to kind of change that to try and at least give people experiences that were enough to get feel for virtual reality, but enough time so we could get the other 100 people who was waiting to come in. So it was really just on the day kind of having to think of how much of the experience you can give to someone and for them to feel comfortable. It's very different with VR because it's such a it's a different technology than sitting down at a keyboard and mouse and playing a game, so you do have to kind of create a bit differently, but absolutely you just need to.
So I guess that's just the thing about going back to creating a custom build, is that you have some control over that, and you can work out how much you want people to see and what kind of if people start to struggle as levels get harder, for example, as they try, they might get dissuaded. But if you can cut it off at the right point, then there might be some benefit to that. So I guess it's just about how much preparation you want to put into that build in advance.
In my experience of like attending rather than hosting, and even from hosting as well, from some of the games that we've shown off, I found particularly games that are currently in development, they want to show off people want to show off particular mechanics, and they want to get people interacting with them and then get feedback on them. But often they're like strawn out across like 3 separate stages or 5 different stages. And you play through it and sometimes you're like, I've been here for quite a while, and they're like, if you could just keep going because I want to see you play this bit. I've had that happen before to me. And I sometimes feel like it'd be nice just having I guess if you are doing custom builds, one stage in which, but this is easy for me to say as a non-developer.
Just whip it up overnight.
Ideally, you know. But I think you're right. It'd be great to have, if you can, kind of encapsulate all the things that you want people to experience in a short and kind of punchy experience.
Yeah.
So you can have them in within 5 minutes. They've played it and they've maybe chat to you about it, or
And
you can
again,
watch their reaction.
You've got what you wanted from
They've
it.
thrown your controller away or whatever.
Yeah.
It's happened. You know.
I've seen, I can't remember who it was, and it's something that I've always wanted to do, but kind of never quite got around to. Like, I've seen people do custom, not just custom builds, but custom levels for shows that like mention the show actually in it.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like when you're playing through the thing, the levels maybe it's got like particular branding for Insomnia in it or something like
right.
that, and that sort of stuff seems to go down quite well.
Cool. So I think we're kind of out of time, but we can open up to questions if anyone has any questions about exhibiting and stuff like that. Brian?
So I think Tony mentioned this about testing. So when you take a build for testing and you create a custom build, you mentioned you instrument it, the analytics in. Do you do any sort of formal testing, A/B testing or anything like that? So like you have a different version from the normal one, see how it flies, or do you not go through that sort of formal process and things like just sit with a bit of pen and paper and just see what people do?
I've never done it. I've seen, so again at Res, Sumo had a game where you played as a snake, and they were just testing that, and they literally had two builds side by side, one labelled as A and one labelled as B, and they would sit you down after you played it. They had like a whole actual sort of questionnaire thing that had said, do you mind if we just ask you some questions? Which build did you play? That or that? Because they'd had each one was essentially the same, but with different control schemes. And apparently, so I was chatting to their guys, and they'd said like internally in the studio, it's basically 50-50 as to which one people prefer. So they had gone to Res and spent that money on Res purely with the intention of, right, we're going to settle this, we're going to find out what's the control scheme. Like, we'll have both in the game, but we're going to find out which one's the default and which one's the...
Interesting. Any other questions? Cool. Okay, well, thanks very much, everyone. Hope that's been useful for folk. Oh, you got one? Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
probably mostly for Tony. Something like Res, I know this is hard to quantify, but do you think you see a return from a promotional point of view doing a show like that?
So the return on it, like actually doing Res, is I mean, as well, because I laid it up with the launch week, so I can't even look at my sales and kind of go, okay, this is what a usual kind of thing is, and this is the weekend that I did Res. I mean, I got probably half of the YouTube videos and stuff have come out of things like that. I mean, so that's another one as well. It's like there's a lot of YouTubers turn up to these things now, and if you can get them face to face and kind of say like, hey, play this, okay, you enjoying it, all right. And I mean, so you get a lot of kids that'll turn up and go, hey, I'm a YouTuber, can I have a key for your game? And you go, how many people follow you on YouTube? 50, and me mum. And you're like, well, probably not then, but it's, you do get something, I can't remember.
Was that the guy from Crushing YouTube?
Yeah. So, but you do get some that turn up and like play your stuff, and then you're kind of like, okay, this is like they're covering you because they've actually met you, and that's the benefit to that. I mean, I don't know, it's almost impossible to quantify. Like you say,
Did you get press that got involved at all? Because there's so many games that shows now.
I had a little bit. So my big kind of regret with Res is that I didn't organise press beforehand. Like, I didn't really schedule in meetings or any, like, even try to schedule in any meetings with press. And I thought that I would just grab them as they were going round, and I managed that with a couple, but not really that much. And then I don't know. It's a very tough one. I had one guy tweet me after Insomnia saying that he had gone straight home and bought it, so that was nice. Yeah, it's like, well, that's one in the bag. That's made my weekend worth it.
I think the thing about press as well is because when our company went over to GDC, we done a lot of press, well, quite a few bits of like interviews and showing the game off to press there, and a lot of the coverage that we were expecting didn't show up in the end. So even though we did the press and we did the interviews and we showed the game, there was so much happening that week, and there's only so much, you know, it's an outdated term, but there's only so many column inches in a magazine to fill. So you're not guaranteed that those articles are ever going to go live. So it's kind of, it can be a bit hit and miss. So even though there's a lot of press potentially at these events, there's so much to cover that you don't know whereabouts you're going to sit.
But if you're not talking to them in the first place, you're not even buying a ticket to that raffle, are you?
Exactly.
Buy a ticket to the raffle.
Exactly. So yeah. Any other questions? Yeah. Cool.
Just to add that point, a lot of times why you don't get articles from the journalists is they go out and get drunk and lose all the notes or the recordings that they have for those things. So it is a bit hit and miss, especially in the larger events to get the press. But generally, if you try and get the press early on so that they write the article at lunchtime, then the lunchtime article's done. And that's one of the reasons, what you were talking about, Tony, it's just with the London game, I said, get to the Games Expo, get all the press stuff in the morning, get it all written out. Because I know what journalists are like, having been. So, and there's always that time where you go, oh, fuck, I've recorded too much stuff, and I'm not going to be able to get any of this into the deadline. So if you're earlier on the list, if you try and catch them as early as possible, and the ones that you really, really want to target, it's much more likely that you will get mentioned if they've liked the game as well and are pushing things forward. Another reason the press might not mention it is that they didn't really like the game, but they didn't really want to be negative about it as well. And rather than just write a neutral article, they just don't write anything.
Can I add a wee thing, John?
Yeah.
If you're exhibiting over long periods of time, Play Expo 2 days, find a way to look after yourself as well. Seriously, because you see people and they're just dead on their feet and they don't drink enough water. It's really simple stuff, but just take a bit of time, look after yourself. Also, if you need to prepare a blurb, perhaps, I don't know if this might help, or if you do this yourselves, guys, having a chat that you have for people that are so what's your game about? Because if you're not prepared to talk about it, sometimes you might find yourself rambling. You can be exhausted halfway into the day. You're I'm not cut out for this. I'm only a quarter of the way through my weekend experience. So I don't know if maybe having a bit of chat that you have at the ready to talk to people about. Obviously, being affable and personable is equally important. But factoring that into, don't there was a Krispy Kreme at Play Expo. It was dangerous. We could have overdosed on donuts, and I just think look after yourself a little bit.
It's really hard to eat properly at the events because the events, all the food at the events is basically burgers and stuff catering to people that are going to the events. So it's all massively expensive and not very healthy, and it's
packed fruit. Stuff like that.
I think to the point you made there about having a blurb kind of ready, not just for that kind of exhaustion of repeating yourself over and over, but I think just making something easy for people to digest as well when you talk to them. Because if you're giving them a different blurb each time because you haven't worked out how to explain what your game is, concisely, then that can be just as much of a problem to put people off, or people don't really remember what has been said because it's not been kind of catchy enough in a sense. So I think there's kind of a lot to that. But, so I think there's one more. Yeah.
Just out of curiosity, what is at things when you've hosted your booths, what is the least prepared thing that has happened during your time hosting booths?
It's a good question, isn't it?
I think we've been pretty lucky up to this point.
Until
It's usually, fingers crossed, touching all the wood, it's usually just a cable or a controller or something like that. But those things can be really significant, It's if your pad doesn't work on a particular PC or something like that. So there's no real juicy stories that I think we have.
Thankfully.
Or anything like that. Thankfully,
I remember having an issue when I was with you guys at
you were
Games
struggling.
of Everyone.
You had
The
to
10 of the
mention
build.
that, and then you
The 10 of the build just crashed a Chromecast and stuff like that. Just things you wouldn't expect. It's Chromecast full screen. Oh, you didn't crashes Chromecast. Just didn't expect that at all.
Yeah.
Which is
And it's perfect example. There's always going to be something like that happens, and most of the time though, when that does happen, you can rely on between everyone there who's exhibiting and sort of the organisers. You can all pull together, and you always find a solution. but it's always terrifying when that,
Yeah.
like with just something, the unknown unknowns.
You mentioned like the folding cars that you can create and stuff like that. Like I would say that yes, they might appear gimmicky to some extent, but like we still have an overcooked chef's hat in our office.
Overcooked. The chef's hat. The beauty of the chef's hat is that it's so visible.
Yeah.
Like you have seen people walking around wearing the chef's hats, and it's like, I get that.
Yeah.
They're walking around wearing that kind of like wearing the.
It was the same idea before with the iron bread headsets as well.
Hats are a good one. I mean, probably expensive, but
I don't think they
good
were
visibility.
expensive. I remember someone saying they were really cheap,
yeah.
which is the best thing ever.
Yeah, I think if there's an affordable way to distinguish yourself amongst the other booths, because you know things like badges and like sweets and all that kind of stuff, often that's kind of like your entry, isn't it? Like, you kind of need that stuff to be competitive.
That thing of the people. So when I was saying about the people walking past, so I found the badges are brilliant for that, because it's like people walking past. Literally, you walk up to someone and go, "Oh, do you want a badge?" Like that, immediately they're paying attention to you, and like they're taking you. If you've got a few different badges, they'll look, and then they won't just grab one. Then they'll kind of go like, "Oh, which one do I want?" And immediately, then you're kind of getting their attention, and then from there you can kind of go, "By the way, now here's the game. Come on, you've got the badge. You're not getting away without playing it." Sit down. But it is that thing of like.
And I think if there's things that you don't want to like have mass-produced items that you're going to try and dole out to lots of people. Otherwise, people will be leaving venues in onesies and pairs of skis with snorkel masks or something like that. I would be too. I'd actually fine with that. But I think if you have like appreciating the space that you're going to be given on the day or over the weekend, and then asking if you can be creative with it, like simple things. CSR Studios, Dead Pixel 2, they were at Res. And they just had like a VHS case, and they'd put like little LEDs in it, and he'd drawn out some custom art from his game and put it on the VHS. And it's kind of like, well, I've not seen one of these in ages, so you're naturally drawn over to it. So maybe you're not throwing things at people, but you're bringing them over with something unique to your space that's inviting them over. I think I can't remember the name of the French developer that made the game Last Fight. It's recently just come out. But their booth space, they'd effectively just got cardboard and kind of mocked up some arcade cabinet machines, because it was quite an arcadey game. That was the sort of vibe that they were going for. And I've since, my imagination has just filled the gap to presume that it was like an actual arcade, and I've kind of glorified it all in my mind. But it was really just some cardboard, and they'd kind of botched it all together, and it looked really nice. It was rough and ready, but it had a real appeal to it, and it just drew people over. Yeah. So if you can find a way to be unique with your space, if you're exhibiting at things like Play Expos and Rest, I think that goes a long way to getting people to come to you.
I think just to add, and just because Craig and me were having the email banter back and forth about one on mobile, always just check. Don't expect things to be there, because the thing that stopped one from mobile being at Play Expo was the fact that Play Expo couldn't guarantee us Wi-Fi. And and Wi-Fi is what our game runs on. Yeah. And previously we'd turned up at Dare. And when I turned up on like the Sunday, I was just like, well, what are you doing? We've got no Wi-Fi, we're showing people pictures of the game. It's just like, it's just like, and in the end I like hopped to my phone so that we could like get people to play the game, and it was before T-Mobile actually limited you on how much like free Wi-Fi. I think that's possibly the reason that they did. But just check everything. Yeah. Don't presume that something's going to be there. Always check. And then if you go to the We Throw Switches guys, they're absolutely brilliant at getting that information back.
Thanks, Phil. Check the phone.
Cheers. Okay, well, thanks very much, guys.
Thank you for having us.